Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ken's Show and Tell, the 7th video in recommissioning this 1959 Mercedes Benz 220S W180. I decided to pull the fuel filter in this reserve bypass thing here for the tank, reserve tank. And here are the lines, the bottom and the main line coming in. I believe this bottom right here is for the reserve tank. And in pulling it, I discovered all this crap. It was all over these fittings, and it was just incredibly dirty. I wished I had the camera with me when I pulled that apart. I really didn't expect to encounter any problems, but I did. On the right is the fuel filter I took out, and this is the new one that came in, made in Turkey. It's K390 or KX39. This one says made in Austria. This one came from FCP Euro. Now look at this thing. That's supposed to be a fuel filter, like before it came out of the car. Look how nasty that thing is, and it wasn't even put in correctly. See, it was smashed down. Another good reason for you to work on your own car. Really, look at that. That's pathetic. And who knows how many years that's been in there, because look how nasty that is. Look how nice that is. Consequently, when I pulled that fuel filter housing, which also contains the bypass valve, out of the car, I discovered how nasty it was, and I decided to put it into this carburetor dip here. And here it is. It's been dipping for about half hour, and it sure looks a lot better than it did. And I've got new internal parts on order from Authentic Classics. I could get a whole kit, including all the internal pieces I need and filters, from Mercedes Benz. You remove this thing out of this Kim bath. Okay, you let it drain. Let's go ahead and transfer this over to this 5-gallon bucket of water that I have here. I know it seems counterintuitive, but that's what the instructions say. Here it is, dried off. I've cleaned up this bolt and its washers. This looks really nice inside. In fact, I hope you can. There's a lovely little spring. There's a spring inside there, and the kit I ordered has a spring to replace it if you need it. I don't think so. In fact, when you look at this, there's a washer here. Let me put the bail down right here. It looks in decent shape. That comes in the kit, and this O-ring down here comes off, and that's to be replaced. But I understand the real hard part is the cork gasket inside here. So let's open it up and see what kind of condition that's in. I know the instructions on the carburetor cleaner said clean this all out with just water, rinse it with water. I'm going to do the carburetor cleaner too, because it still feels real sticky to me on the outside. And you know, it's a fuel thing, so it should be all right. Just kind of do this and kind of the preliminary clean from the inside. Okay, feels better already. Let's see what this one is like. Okay, let's just wipe these things off with a cloth. Oh yeah, that does feel better. I hate that sticky feeling. And now we can scrub it a little better. We'll pull out that O-ring and take a look at it as well. I'm pulling up this, I thought it was an O-ring, but it's really a flat rubber washer. Kind of trying to gently get it out of here. There we go. Oh, I don't want to. All right, there it is. Now the idea about this fuel filter and all this is that you change this. You change the element, the paper element that sticks right here routinely, and that keeps you from having to just do all the disassembly and clean out all this gunk from years of lack of maintenance and attention. Well, I put this in a vise down like so that nut is caught in the vise jaws, and then I was able to use the slot and use a punch and drive this circlip out right here, which is nice. Now this valve lifts out. There we go, here it comes, and there it is exposed, and it's all of its nasty glory. So we'll clean that up a little better. Look how it transfers from main to reserve tank right here. Alright, that is supposed to be a cork gasket right down there with those 3 holes in it. And it looks intact. The issue is, do I want to try to pull it out? Because I know I have another one coming in. Let me just study a little bit more. Might be able to clean it up a little bit more. And we'll have a verdict from there. Well, I would say the effort was worth it. Work on the wire wheel on the inside and the outside of this lever mechanism, as well as more toothbrush work with carburetor cleaner. I mean, so this piece right here, this round cylindrical piece, rides inside this barrel. So I figured the cleaner we can get that, the smoother that whole thing is going to operate. And there's a spring in here. A whole lot better. I think it's going to function better. And I'm going to continue that kind of approach to the body part here. Here are all the pieces cleaned and ready to go. All cleaned up. All the surfaces made clean. Ready for the new gaskets and new seals. This I cleaned up really well because it rubs against this gasket down here, and I cleaned up this extremely well because it rotates inside of here. Now look at this. Remember how hard it was to move? No, this is really easily moved. Now I know I don't have the snap ring on there, but I think it'll tighten it up a little bit, but you know, that's really nice. I got to thinking about how nasty I found that fuel filter in that reserve tank valve that I showed you earlier, and I said maybe I ought to see what the fuel tank looks like and see what the fuel looks like it comes out of it. Trusty old pry bar, let's just see. Oh, came loose. Okay. Fuel wants to come out. Let me just tighten it back up so it's not leaking. You saw I got it loose with the pry bar. Okay, here it comes. Whoa. Okay. Yeah, okay, it's unscrewing. That's good. I was afraid, you know, these things can strip, but let's just see. Whoa, you gotta see that filter. I'll bring it to you. Look how nasty that thing is. It's rusting, rotted in two. I've got to buy a new one of these. Okay, good thing I did it. Oh, Jesus. Okay. So I'll have to order one. Let's look at the fuel. Well, I got some decisions to make. I can see particles floating around in there. Boy, this car has been neglected. I mean, this is not just a year or two. This is a decade of neglect all over this car. Oh, man. See, look, can you see the particles floating around? Let me see if I can tilt it towards the sun here. Here we go. Look at that. See them floating around the bottom? Oh yeah, it's rust all right. I want everyone to see this. This is dried out now. It's the filter I pulled out of the tank. It has some sort of a sealant that's been squirted right here up in there. And you see, I think whoever did this, God, 20 years ago, who knows, put sealant on these threads here so it wouldn't leak, I guess, out of the tank. And look, that's what's in there. I mean, it is, not only is that rust, but it's also just deteriorated screen. See how that screen just falling apart right there? Look at that. Jesus Christ. Man. Okay. Maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. I'm sure nobody here is surprised that these two fuel lines going in and out of the tank here are frozen. I could get the nuts to turn inside the tank, but the line itself is frozen to the nut. So I've got PB Blaster soaking and I've got Kroll soaking. I'm going to come back and just do that for several days while this tank continues to drain. I also, the mounting bolts that are up in here, here's one right there. It's glistening with PB Blaster. One over here is also glistening with PB Blaster. And you've got another one over here, up in that crevice there. I know I have to undo these lines here. I got PB Blaster on that one. To take that off and of course replace that cheese grater with a good clamp. This fuel system thing is at a standstill because I really think I need to pull this fuel tank off and investigate. The sending unit is accessed through the trunk floor. Take up this little plug here, and there's the sending unit. Here's all the little nuts and washers that hold it together. Here's a ground right here, and I've got it marked where the ground was in red because this is red here, and then this is power, and I've got it marked with black, and I put black on that insulator right there. This was very useful, Kroll, in getting these nuts loose. They were pretty corroded, so I believe if I just lift them behind this lip, I think this lifts out over these little studs here. Let's just see what we've got. So you have to kind of go at it in a seesaw motion, apparently. Okay, now it's getting a little more loose, as they say, looser. Okay, I can feel the float down in there, I think. Okay. I know this is a delicate instrument, so it was a cork. I could feel it. Here comes the. And I imagine this has to kind of fish out of there. Oh, I'm stuck on this cork gasket here. Okay, here we go. Here we go. All right, there it is. Oof. Oh man, that's probably the condition of inside the tank. Can you see the rust all on here? The sending unit's still working. This cork gasket is toast. Okay, here. So there it is. There's the float. Sending unit itself. See how rusted that is? Probably it's not rusted because it was sitting in gasoline. It's probably rusted because it was sitting in almost on an empty tank for a long, long time. Okay, and then I've got these marked appropriately, and then I'll put some cleaner on it, deoxit, look at those contacts and stuff, and try to knock all the rust off of this. Okay, now as soon as those other things down below become loose, I'll be able to, I think, detach the tank from all of this. Well, we have now returned to this reserve fuel valve with the secondary fuel filter, or the primary fuel filter, because it's not a screen, it's an actual filter. Back to rebuilding it. Remember, it's all clean now, and I just received the spare parts from Authentic Classics, manufactured in Germany, right here. And here's the new cork gasket, which this piece rotates on, and you can see how it turns. This is going to be your main fuel, and then down here is your reserve, and up here is your main line here. And all that does, when these cars, most cars have what's called a reserve tank. What that is, they just have two pipes going onto inside the tank. They go to different depths, and the deeper one is the reserve. So let's see if we can pull this out. I'm feeling of it, and it feels hard relative to this new cork one, so that's why I'm going to change this out. And then we can just put this back together. I've repainted the little house. Here's all the new pieces, the rubber washers. I don't know if I'm going to use this or not, because this one in here still feels good and strong, but we'll see. This old one was not difficult to get out, but relative to this new one, look how thin it is. That just shows how much it's been compressed over the decades. It needs to make a nice tight seal between this piece and down in here, so when you switch back and forth, there's no leakage of fuel. All right, let's get this back in here. So I anticipate that's going to be a tight fit with the new piece going back in here. There's the new cork gasket in. It sits a little taller, a little higher, like I thought it would, from these little holes. But I think it's going to be all right. It looks nice in there. So the next thing we'll do is we'll put this piece back on top, and then we'll go ahead and put that circlip back in. Here's a little trick. If you remember, this thing is spring loaded. So there's a spring inside here, and there's a circlip that goes right here that holds that, goes in this groove that holds this in place. So in order for this to be put in, it self-locates, because you see you have range of motion. It's already restricted, and it puts it on top of those holes for the fuel. But the problem is suppressing this without having to take this apart. I'm sure there's a special tool for that, but I found this old kind of pot metal thing I had here, and I cut out a slot so it fits like this. We'll put it over like that. It fits right over there. Here's the tool using a C-clap. That's piece I found. I cut out a slot for the handle to stick through, and I put a washer on top so it would be easy to grab, and it doesn't take much pressure to suppress that spring. But I hope you can see you had to get it down to where that little groove around the edge of the barrel is exposed enough to where you can put the circlip in there. Let's go ahead and put the circlip in. Here's the little beauty, the reserve tank switch, along with the filter, all the gaskets exchanged, new filter, everything cleaned up. This is as if it's in the car, and this is the main tank, and you flip this, and this is for the reserve. Beautiful little piece of engineering. And if you need to buy the whole kit, I got this from Authentic Classics, but the number is A000-477-1060. And if you just need the filter, it's A000-477-5015. All right, and I have an extra one right here, which I'm going to put away in my spares, and we'll be good to go, including an extra spring.